How does Harish Natarajan, one of the world's top debating champions, influence and persuade people? What is his secret formula that has seen him win debating tournaments all over the world, including defeating IBM's Project Debater, an AI project designed to compete against humans? In today's video, you're going to find out why most people's approach to persuasion actually has the opposite effect. It shuts their opponents down and riles them up. Understand what dancing and influencing have in common. Learn why a weighing scales is so important to understanding your likely chances of success at persuading people to a new point of view. Find out what the number one behavioural trait is that leads to successful negotiation outcomes. And finally, why you need to change from using a straw man to a steel man if you want to improve your influencing skills. Why do most people's approach to persuasion actually have the opposite effect? Let me ask you some questions first. How do you usually try to persuade a person to your point of view? Do you take an adversarial approach? Do you believe that you can open someone else's mind using this approach? When you've taken this approach in the past, what's the usual result you've seen? When you think about persuading or influencing people, you need to stop thinking about the challenge in terms of bringing somebody to your point of view. In a classic study conducted by Neil Rackman, examining the differences between expert negotiators and average negotiators, he found the following. The average negotiators went into negotiations armed for battle, hardly taking any note of anticipated areas of agreement with their opponents. The expert had fewer arguments to support their case. They didn't want to water down their best points, and, as Rackman put it, a weak argument generally dilutes a strong one. The more reasons you put on the table, the easier it is for people to discard your weakest arguments. Once the opposition discard one argument, it becomes easier to discard the whole lot. Average negotiators were more likely to enter into defend-attack spirals. They dismissively shot down their opponents' proposals and doubled down on their own position, which prevented both sides from opening their minds. The expert negotiators rarely went on offence or defence. Instead, they expressed curiosity with questions like, "So you don't see any merit in this proposal at all?" So if you normally go on offence trying to persuade the opposition to your point of view, it's actually having the opposite effect and making it more likely that they won't see your point of view at all. Understanding what dancing and influencing people have in common. Stop thinking of influencing and persuading like a challenge to win, a battle to persevere in. Start thinking of it like a dance. This dance has to be choreographed, and for a dance between two people to work, you need to work together. Starting out, you have one set of dance moves, and your partner has a different set of dance moves. If you try too hard to lead, your partner will resist. If, however, you adapt your moves to theirs and get them to do the same, you're more likely to end up in a rhythm that works. If you stand still and expect your partner to make all the moves, it's clearly not going to work. To achieve harmony, you need to take a step back from time to time to encourage your partner to do the same. You may appear to be less assertive to your opponent in this stance, but what you are actually doing is leading by letting your partner step forward. Learn why a weighing scales is so important to understanding your likely chances of success at persuading people to a new point of view. If you're like most people, when it comes to winning an argument or a debate or trying to persuade somebody to your point of view, you think that by loading up on your reasons for supporting your view, the more likely you are to have success in changing other people's minds. Yet, the experiment from Neil Rackman showed if you try and load up your arguments, you're actually having the opposite effect to what you're trying to achieve. Instead of persuading people, you're just giving them opportunities to pick holes in your arguments. The more reasons you load up on your side of the scales, the more shaky the whole pile becomes. You're more likely to lose ground with this approach, not because of the strength of your most compelling argument, but because of the weakness of your least compelling one. Ultimately, you're looking to have a conversation with your partner, and fewer arguments makes this possible. If all you're doing is throwing multiple arguments towards the opposition, it can feel like an onslaught, and that clearly is going to lead to pushback. Find out what the number one behavioural trait is that leads to successful negotiation outcomes. The number one behavioural trait that leads to successful negotiations is curiosity. Curiosity about the person or group you are trying to persuade and ultimately influence. You won't have much luck convincing other people to change their mind if you refuse to change yours. When in debating competitions, Harish Natarajan recognises that he can demonstrate openness by acknowledging where he agrees with his opponents and even what he has to learn from them. When he then goes on to ask what views his opponents might be willing to revise, he's not seen as a hypocrite, as he's already revised his own views. Why do you need to change from using a straw man to a steel man if you want to improve your influencing skills? When Harish Natarajan thinks about finding common ground with his opponent, he works on putting himself in their shoes. Most people immediately start with a straw man, picking holes in the weakest version of the other side's case. Harish does the reverse. He considers the strongest version of their case, which is known as a steel man. Harish approaches this task like a scientist. He does it to learn. Instead of trying to dismantle the argument he's speaking against, Harish will accept the opposite argument, which allows him to relate to his opponent's perspective and to the audience who decide the winner. Approaching persuasion and influence like this allow him to strike a balanced and fair view, and his concerns about the opponent's view are more credible. Drawing attention to common ground and avoiding defence attack spirals are key to persuasion, but also Harish knows that not coming on too strong is also important. That's it for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, I'd appreciate if you click the like button. If you have any comments, please feel free to share them. I'm interested in your views or your own experiences with persuasion and influencing people. If you want to listen to more stories about how to improve your persuasion and influencing skills, please subscribe to the channel. Thank you.